One day in January 2024, immediately after I woke up, I took a freezing cold shower, meditated for 20 minutes after that, and then made my bed. I hadn't done any of those habits before, so I was feeling good, I was feeling disciplined. Next day, wake up, do the exact same thing. I didn't start with the water warm, it was freezing cold, probably about 45 degrees at that time. Walked right in, stayed in for probably 2-3 minutes, and I'd come out, meditated, and I made my bed. The next day, I wake up, and I just knew that I was not going to do any of that. There wasn't debate like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to take my cold shower today, I'm feeling kind of tired. That didn't even happen. I just knew that I was not going to be taking a cold shower or meditating for 20 minutes or making my bed that day. And this is why. Motivation is what I was running off of. And as you might know, motivation is extremely fickle. You cannot rely on it. I was feeling really motivated for those 2 days when I thought it was discipline. But when my motivation wore off, I stopped the habits that came with it as well. This is a problem that a lot of people have. So whether it's on New Year's Day, you're feeling good, you're setting all these New Year's resolutions, and then a month later, you couldn't care less. That's motivation. Motivation is when you're feeling good and you want to go do something. So you could want to go to the gym, you could be motivated to go to the gym, or you could also be motivated to eat junk food. Discipline is when you do something that you don't want to do. Now, what my mistake was in January 2024 was that I was running off of motivation. I thought I was super disciplined because I was doing hard things, but the difference was that I wanted to do them. When on the third day my motivation ran out, I didn't have enough discipline to be doing those habits because I knew they were good for me, and if I had enough discipline to have been doing them beforehand, I would have been. So this is a very common mistake that people make when trying to start out with good habits. Maybe they'll see a David Goggins motivational YouTube short or something like that, and they'll be like, yeah, let's go start running for like an hour a day, like 10 miles a day. And then they do for maybe a day or two, but motivation wears off quick. So the way to fix this is instead of running 10 miles, run 1 mile. Now, if I would have heard myself say that a year ago, I probably wouldn't have listened. But the issue is, when you run 10 miles, even if it's just one day, your brain kind of naturally thinks, wait, I just ran 10 miles, that means I can do it again and again and again, and I can be consistent with it. The issue is, you were running off of motivation, and in a week, that motivation is not going to be there. You're going to be running off of discipline in a week, and again, if you had the discipline to be running 10 miles a day beforehand, you probably would have been. So don't lie to yourself. You probably don't have the discipline to run 10 miles a day, so don't just go start running 10 miles a day out of nowhere. Start with 1 mile a day, because it actually gives your discipline the chance to catch up with where you're trying to go instead of just jumping ahead to something super far ahead of where you're at. So one way I've actually applied this in my life is in October 2024 when I started taking cold showers again. This time, I didn't combine it with 20 minutes meditation and making my bed. All I did this time was I started with the water warm, I'd get in, and then I'd turn it down to cold, stay in for a minute or two, and then get out. This actually allowed my brain to build up the discipline of actually turning it to cold, and it allowed me to get a bit used to the cold water, and it just sort of became a habit, I take cold showers every morning now. Then, one morning, I think like 2 weeks later, I was like, you know what, I'm feeling good this morning, let's just go take a freezing cold shower. The next morning, I did it again. The morning after that, did it again. And I was consistent with that for about 5 or 6 months until I decided to stop doing that recently. Now, this is an incredibly important part. If you do end up taking a freezing cold shower one day, if you do something harder than you normally do one day, don't set that as the standard. Do not set it as the standard. So I may have gotten a bit lucky. I mean, my brain was kind of like adapted to the cold. But when I took my first fully cold shower, no warm to cold, I ended up doing it consistently again and again and again for like 5-6 months. For a lot of people, that's not going to happen because their motivation does wear off and they don't have enough discipline to keep doing it afterwards. Again, I got a bit lucky because I had already conditioned myself, but it's okay if you go back to the easier option, if you go back to warm to cold the next day, because you were running off of motivation, and you're still building a bit of discipline by doing an easier version of it. So an easier way to explain this would be, let's say you start going on a 1 mile run 5 days a week. Then one day you're feeling good and you end up running like 3 miles. Do not set that as the standard. It's very, very easy to say, okay, so I'll just run 3 miles now, and if I don't run 3 miles, then it doesn't really make sense to just run 1 mile, because that's not really going to give me any results. Do not do that. The point of starting off easy, or the point of starting small, is not to actually see results from the habit, it's to actually build it up as a habit first, and then once it's actually built into a habit, you can slowly start bringing it up. So the way to actually be disciplined consistently is by starting small and focusing on building something up as a habit first. So for example, just running for 1 mile a day. And then after a few weeks, when you're feeling ready, just try and bring it up to 2 miles. If you fail, do not say, okay, so there's no point in running 1 mile anymore. Go back down to 1 mile, and eventually you will be building up discipline. So eventually you're going to be ready to bring it up to 2 weeks. And it could come, 2 miles. And it could come pretty quickly. It could literally come within a week or two. In my example with the October story of starting cold showers again, I went from like warm to cold showers to actual fully cold showers in I think about 2 weeks. So it depends on the person, and you can bring it up in the smallest increments if you need to. You can go from 1 mile to 1.5 miles. It's kind of like a painfully slow approach, but if you actually want to build discipline, if you actually want to build these habits, then this is what you need to do. So if you found this video helpful, be sure to check out my Relentless Discipline course in the description, where I walk you through step by step everything you need to know to build discipline and to apply it to any area of your life.